Welcome here once again. And we may hopefully you, Larry Smith, Brad Sturdy, Mike Kegley. Always want to say thanks to our producer, Tony Cordero, our editor, Josh Ewing, and all of you for coming by here every week. Listen, it's a big weekend. You would think, yeah, graduation time and sports winding down, but a really big weekend for the Illini. It is their first time ever. Illinois men's golf will host an NCAA regional at Atkins and Urbana. We've talked about this for a while. Coming up in a few minutes here, Jim Buzzy, who is the GM of the course, is going to talk to us here in a little bit about what it took, the process. You know, they just opened like three and a half years ago. And yet here they are. The dream that they had, the vision they had is coming to fruition. We'll talk about that. Also, one of the top recruits, not only in Illinois, but in the entire country, is J.C. Anderson, the outstanding tight end from Mount Zion. Illinois is in his top five. We'll catch up with him at the bottom of the hour. He and his mom, Becky, will get a conversation as well in terms of just how this process is going for him. And the young man who didn't start out wanting to be a football star. He had other ideas in mind. We'll talk about that coming up here as well. Second hour, by the way, if you're able to stick around for that. Caught up with on our other show, Sports IQ with Larry Smith. We caught up with Kenny Rice, the NBC Sports horse racing reporter, talk about again the Derby winner not running into Preakness. That's coming up, and we'll talk later as well, a little NFL football in the second hour. But guys, want to talk about Illini golf right now. Let's start first with the Illini women. The NCAA regionals didn't go well for them in Columbus. Had a great first day. The wind took over, and they never recovered in games in rounds 2 and 3.
Yeah, they look like me playing in the wind. It's not, and that's not a
Wow.
compliment.
That's not
So,
good.
Wow.
no, it's really tough. It got tough, and they were seeded to finish probably what sixth or seventh, I think, in the region. Well, they finished around 10th, and because they were in that sixth slot, they were right there, had a chance to make a move going into day two, just didn't get it done. Too many bogeys, too many big numbers, and they kept moving up. But they made the tournament. It's a start. I mean, they're not at the level the men are, but a cold weather climate, consistently making the tournament, that's kind of the start for them. And now they just got to build on that.
Well, as you're developing a program, you don't have as much talent as Mike Small has accumulated and developed over the years. And so the weather conditions can sometimes overpower the talent level. And the Big Ten, you're going to get days like that, but it certainly puts the foundation pieces in place to add to that from a talent standpoint, and see if they can do a better run next year, and the better players or better golfers that they have, the less impact that the elements will have on the team.
Yeah. So Renee Sloan, what a great job she has done there. Is like you said, you guys had a good point. Look, it's a Midwestern, cold weather town, right? You don't have sun year round. You can't play outdoors year round. But they got that great facility there on campus and taking advantage of that. Great season for them. Meanwhile, for the Illini men, as you mentioned, again on Monday at Atkins. By the way, it is free to go in. And take part and root on the Illini, the orange and blue in this. They're the 3 seed in this. And we saw what happened last year when they didn't win the Big Ten, which they've won 13 out of 16 years. They didn't win it again this year. The late collapse on the back nine in Baltimore on the Sunday a couple of weeks ago. They come up just one shot short. But we saw last year where they finished in second place, went on to blow out the competition in the regional at Stanford, and end up going deep in the NCAA championships as well. They're at home this time and a chance to get back to the championship round and maybe then take it a step further.
Yeah, I think they can. They certainly have that talent. They're going to have to get a better play out of Jackson Buchanan as than they got in the Big Ten, and I think that's going to be a key. They got some great stuff out of freshman Jake Birdwell. Max Herendeen is going to have to perform, but who comes up, and a lot of times these tournaments aren't necessarily won by the top guys. They're won by the fourth and fifth guys who can post that score that allows them to advance, whether it's, Marion or Ethan Wilson, Trey Marion, Ethan Wilson, somebody like that to kind of step up and, somebody doing a job to get that score at the that gives them the opportunity to advance.
Yeah, and I know it was a rough moment. It didn't hit expectation levels that the University of Illinois golf team normally has. at the same time, when you see guys performing that well, maybe going up over their pay grade, makes you wonder what this team would be capable of if they all were good at the same time, so it gives you a little bit of hope for what's coming up in the NCAAs, but it's, the consistency has to get better, which I think Mike Small said that.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, right on the show, he did. He told us that, didn't he? He said that's been their Achilles heel this year. And even, we mentioned, well, you've all these top 10 finishes. He's like, yeah, but you play to win. You don't play to finish in second. I mean, that's his mentality. Yeah. So, but to your point,
that's why he's great.
It's why he's so great. Exactly. 25 years. It's why he's the best in the game. When you have a team like this, to your point, what if you finished one shot behind UCLA and you got really next to nothing from Max Herendeen and from Jackson Buchanan? Imagine if they were each 3 shots better, still below what they usually do. Illinois wins that easily. If they can do that this weekend, they're coming up here on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. They're going to be very solid and on the way to California.
No question. And they have the great advantage. A lot of times you go out, they played some courses that were a little bit different. Now they got the home court advantage in this round. So this is something where this is the reason that you want to host, right? So you have the course knowledge, how the greens break, you practice there, you play there, where not to hit the ball, you know what you can reach, what you can do. So all those things are part of it, and they're in a great position to advance. And as we know, you want to be top 5. Because if you're top 5, then boom, you're going to go on, and then you get to the stroke play at the next level, and then eventually to the match play, which is where they want to be. And to do that, though, they got a great opportunity because they're at home.
Yeah, I kind of can't wait to see the strategy, because if I was a golfer, I would be watching how the Illini players, if there's any, especially the hole in front of me, I would be wanting to watch how they're playing a certain hole and how they're approaching it, because they should know. Now, obviously, there's a difference between individual golfers. Like, I would have to run up and drop the ball where I wanted to go, as opposed to using a club.
But and be disqualified immediately.
Wait, you would run?
Yeah. Well, okay. I would mosey.
That's better.
So, but I do think, there's, for the smart player, I think the smart player is going to watch the Illini player and say, well, maybe I should avoid that side of the course on this hole, or, et cetera.
Yeah, no question about that. So again, it tees off Monday morning, free admission. And again, we talked to Jim Buzzy of Atkins, and that conversation coming up here in just a few moments in our next segment. We can't wait to talk to him about how they have prepared this course as per NCAA requirements, and how the team also is preparing under Mike Small's tutelage. We can't wait for that. NCAA regionals getting ready. Let's turn now to Illini football. Meanwhile, it's an off season like we really have rarely seen. In fact, really, this generation has not. I mean, they're right now are college graduates who have never seen Illinois football in this position in the all season after a 10-win season. And guys, you were talking about that some of these preseason rankings, I mean, take them with a grain of salt, right? I mean, it doesn't mean really anything, but I've always taken the off-season and preseason rankings as a sign of respect. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're the third best team in the country, but people respect you as the third best team. And Brad, you were saying that Illinois is getting a lot of love in some of those polls.
Yeah, it's really interesting when you see Illinois ranked in the top 10. They were. I always think about this. They're ranked I saw one preseason poll. They were ranked 8th, and Georgia was 7th, and you're like, well, I guess those are good people to be competing with. So, but it just goes to show you what Brett Bielema has done to kind of put this program on the map. He has made it where it's kind of a sexy place to play. They're getting the notoriety. They're getting people to talk about them. And I saw something. I think it was on the Pat McAfee show on ESPN. They were talking about Illinois is the Indiana of this year. But they're really not, because this Illinois team's ranked in the preseason top 10. And I know historically they're not maybe that level of program, but they're not sneaking up on anybody. They don't have the luxury of being Indiana, where nobody thought Indiana was going to be that good. Illinois they are going to be the hunted this year. And that's a different animal. And so I think that it's going to be tougher for them than it was for Indiana, because teams are going to bring their A game every time they see the Illini, because they've become a name program.
Yeah. And Brett Bielema doesn't sneak up on a lot of people anyway. So, I do think this is a very interesting team because they're one of the older teams. Listening to Brad Underwood, get old and stay old. Brett Bielema has managed to strategically use his NIL funds to keep veterans on the team. This team wants to win. And so it is one of those things where it's funny because people remember Illinois wasn't that good a couple of years ago. So people are going to be aware of Illinois, and yet they also don't want to get beat by Illinois. And it's kind of a double-edged sword there. But I really think this could be a year that could be every bit as magical as last year. And we'll just have to see. But everybody, like Brad said, they're going to be gunning for the Illini. So that should be fun.
Yeah, no question. And I think, again, it shows, this is a program we've talked before that you're going to have to be, you've got to keep a core together. And there's so many players who could have left, veteran guys who are going to play their final year, the Luke Altmaiers, the Gabe Akases, guys like that. And that's going to give Illinois an advantage to maybe some other teams that did not. And Brad, I agree with you. Nobody saw Indiana coming until, they got the hot start. And you look up in October, they're undefeated still, right? I mean, so It's not the case for Illinois. It's not at all. No question about that. Well, hey, listen, we've got so much more to come. We'll take a quick time out right now. Jim Buzzy is up next with J.C. Anderson, the outstanding Mount Zion tight end, is coming up after that. And a bit later, we're talking money, baby. Dollar bill, y'all. And there's a lot of them flying around. That's still to come here in this first hour. Just getting started. Lots of fun. Glad you're here with us with the Illini guys. This is the Sports Spectacular.